What's up, YouTube? All right, here we go, part 4. We're going to dive into this rear end. And upon tearing it apart, what I discovered, the axle seal is starting to leak here. I had planned on replacing the seals anyways, because it's good to replace all that stuff. That one's still okay, but I'm going to replace it anyways. I'm also going to do the pinion seal. Little tip trick here, tech tip. Let's see if I can get the lighting better on that. You want to mark your nut and the pinion if you're going to replace the pinion seal. That way when you put that nut back on there, you go back in the exact same spot, because there's a preload that the pinion gear is under. And if you tighten it too much or not enough, you could probably have issues within your gear engagement. So I've already drained the fluid on this, I think last year, but we'll go ahead and change it again this year. That is, I believe, the part number for this particular ring gear, because this is the original one, and that's probably the date code 666, so probably June 66, maybe June 2nd. But right there, 11 and 41. If you divide 11 into 41, you get 3.72723 or whatever it is. So basically this is a 373. If you had 10 in 41, 10 divided by 41 would be 4.1, which is 410 gears. So that would be your ring, or that would be your pinion gear tooth count, and that would be your ring gear tooth count. That way you don't have to count all the gears. You find that number, especially if it's the original ring gear, divide those two numbers, and that'll be your gear ratio. Just thought I'd share that. All right, so I'm gonna set up the camera. We'll probably rotate this rear end up, and I'm gonna show y'all how to go ahead and pull these axles out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set up the camera. This is a 1/2 inch. Only way that broke it loose off camera. Wasn't too bad. Just remove that 1/2 inch nut. Technically a bolt, not a nut. Yeah, don't lose that either. It's kind of a special bolt. You should be able to just push that out like that. There you go. So now, let's see if we can rotate this. All right. Let me readjust the camera so you can see off in there and go from there. All right, here we go, here we go, here we go. So basically, once you got that pin out of the way, all you have to do is push the axle in, and you'll see that C-clip right there. That's why they call it a C-clip, because it looks like a C. And once you do that, just pull the axle out. That's it. That's all it needs to be done. Sometimes you can use a magnet to do this as well. I'll grab it. That's it. And pull the axle out on this side. All right. As you can see, I don't know if that lighting's killing it. You can tell that thing's starting to leak. I don't know how long it's been leaking. But good thing it has not got into my brakes. I don't have to replace all the brakes. These seals are really simple. You can use a screwdriver or anything, but if you can, these ain't very much money. These are what they call seal pullers. The hook just gets in there and pulls it out. Really, almost makes it effortless. Ooh. go. Just like that. Worth the money, I'm telling you guys, worth the money. One and 1/8 inch. There we go. There we go. I believe you need a puller to pull this out, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let me go get that, and we'll go from there. All right, it took a minute to sort all this out, but I have a harmonic balance puller, and it seems to work out pretty good here. I just used some thick washers and some 5/16 bolts. They fit through the pinion yoke. They go through those holes just perfect. Had to shim a little bit there. I'm just using it 2 on each side, so looks like it'll work. I'm gonna have to use some channel locks to hold this thing still like that while I crank on this thing. So there it is. There you go. Also gonna make it easier for me to clean all this up and paint it. The last thing we gotta do is pull that seal off. There she's coming. There it is. Alright, I think the rear end's pretty much stripped and disassembled as far as I'm going to take it. I got a lot of work to do here as far as stripping the rust. I had to get all this oil and crap that's stuck in these nooks and crannies. Got to dig all that stuff out. Hey guys, I wanted to give y'all a little tech tip if y'all gonna be doing something like what I'm doing here with the rear end out. See all that buildup in here? All that stuff that gets stuck in the nooks and crannies. Take you just a cheap screwdriver and just make it into like a chisel point. The way it really gets in those nooks and crannies, you can just kind of breaks all that stuff up really easy. You can use a, like a little chisel or something, but sometimes you get in those really tight spots, it won't fit in there. So a cheap little screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, really does the trick. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Also, one thing I noticed, see that little nipple? That's your vent. That thing was completely clogged with dirt. So if you ever change your oil, when you do that, make sure that vent is free of debris. And also, see that hose down there? That's the original hose. Well, that's the hose that was on it. I'm gonna replace that. Make sure that stuff is has no debris. So take some compressed air, blow it out, whatever you got to do. I just took a pick and pushed all that dirt through, and just used some brake cleaner to clean it out. So now I shouldn't have no issues. Plus, when I get a new hose, everything will be new there. So, all right, I want to get back at it. Just thought I'd share that little tech tips. All right, guys, I want to take a moment and kind of show y'all where I'm at with this. I went ahead and removed the center section of the rear end. I wanted to really empty this thing out. I left the pinion gear in there. It's kind of pressed in, so I'm just going to leave it in there. I'm I'm taking my chances. I am not going to rebuild this rear end. I'm just going to reseal it. All the bearings seem to look good and feel good, so I'm going to go ahead and take a chance. They've lasted 55 years. Hopefully they last a few more years until I am ready to rebuild this thing. Also, in the last video, I had somebody ask me what did I use to strip the frame, and I did not cover that. I should have. So on this video, or on this particular part of the video, I'm going to go ahead and show y'all what everything I use to strip this, the frame, and anything else I pretty much do. So I'm going to go get that stuff set up on the workbench and show y'all what I'll use. This is probably one of my favorite items to use. This works great on smooth, flat surfaces. It's a stripping disc. Get these at Home Depot. They're about 10 bucks. They work great for, like I said, the smooth surfaces. It really removes paint and rust really fast. The downside to this is you get this caught on the edge of the frame, edge of like this rear end right here. If you got the edge of that, or a bolt, or anything that's protruding out, you'll destroy one of these quick. And at 10 bucks a piece, you kind of want to make these last as long as possible. So it's pretty much the same thing here, except this goes on the end of the drill. Works great. I recently bought one of these, and I actually like this. This works pretty good too. You know, the way it flares out, gets in the corners a lot better, especially on the inside of the frame versus this thing. I also have smaller versions that have the little plastic screw-on nut there. Works well on these, and these are kind of nice because you can put this on the end of a die grinder or a drill. Also got the big version, 3-inch size. Well, I have the pads that go on that. They also have, I think I have it as well, they have the one that has the little metal nut that kind of screws on there. Sometimes these do break off. So, sanding pads, and I got the smaller versions with the plastic nut. Also, I like using wire wheels. They are kind of dangerous. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses if you do use these. These are good for like getting on the inside of a corner, the edge, stuff like that. The wire wheel gets in there really nice and cleans up any grit, any rust, paint, whatever gets out there pretty good. You got, of course, obviously you got different sizes for different applications. These are good for little nooks and crannies, kind of like this. That's what I used to get in there. Doesn't get it down to bare steel because it can't, but you know, it breaks all that loose rust up, so the paint should adhere a lot better. These are nice as well. These are good for like going around something that's kind of protruding. But this is pretty much it, and I'll be using more of this as I go along, stripping other stuff as well. I still got to do the drive shaft. I still got to do the backing plates and all that. So, all right, guys, check out this axle. Check out this differential here. Paint turned out nice, lays down good. Like I mentioned in the last video, guys, that BHT epoxy paint, that's what I use. I love it. It lays down great. You get that metal nice and clean, best you can. Get all that rust off, paint off. It just lays down really nice. Turns out great. Great for this kind of stuff, that, you know, suspension, rear end, chassis, stuff like that. So there's several ways you can paint this. I did a two-step process. I went ahead, when it was all down to bare steel, I left the axle tubes like right in here on the jack stand so I could rotate it, and I did the center section first because, you know, there's a lot of nooks and crannies you got to get into, a lot of different angles and directions. So I was able to rotate it, hit all those spots really good. And I also did the axle pads as well because it's balancing, right now it's balancing on the jack stand. So I painted the bottom side. I painted the bottom side first, and then the center section, let that dry. Then I set it up on the jack stands on the axle pads and then painted the tubes. So I did that yesterday, so the tubes are dry, they're ready to go. So now I had to order the seals, axle, pinion, and then I got me a new gasket coming. I also also painted the cover, so that turned out pretty nice as well. The only thing I have left to do is paint. Is I'm gonna clean up these axles. Can't remember if I painted the flanges or not. I'll clean up those drums and paint those again. And the only thing that needs to be stripped a little bit is the disc brake, or not disc brake, but the drum brake backing plate on the outside that you see. So yeah, once I strip the backing plates, get the axles cleaned up and the drums, I can start assembling this rear end again. So I'm starting getting to the other side of the rusty, dirty crap. So I'm sure you've noticed that I got a car cover over the cab. If you're gonna do anything similar to what I'm doing, get you a cheap car cover and go ahead and cover it up, because this dirty stuff, this dusty, rusty air, it gets everywhere. Unless you just want to spend time cleaning all that stuff up, I would suggest getting that. The last thing I'll have to strip once I get to that point will be that drive shaft. It's kind of protruding out there by that, right next to the drums. So that'll be the last thing I probably do. See that on another video. Before I start putting everything back together though, I do have to mount the lower mounts to the trailer arms, and I'll be showing that here in this video as well. The good thing about it is, several videos back, if you want to check it out, I actually rebuilt the, it's not really rebuilt, I just put new bushings in the trailer arms, and I really cleaned them up really good and painted them. So those have already been painted. I may touch them up, I may go ahead and apply another coat just to kind of bring a little shine to it, but other than that, they're ready to go once I mount those lower mounts. So you pretty much caught up where I'm at right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep cleaning, keep doing what I gotta do, and hopefully the next time you see this rear end, it'll be ready to go back under the truck. Alright guys, I'm gonna get back to it. Alright guys, got everything cleaned up on the inside, got all the bearings clean, got all that oily metal residue out of there. Real quick tech tip: if you're ever going to take one of these apart, make sure you stamp the left main cap and the right main cap. That way you don't mix them and put this one on this side and that one on this side. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might mess up the bearings. So just mark it, make sure it goes back in the exact same location it came, and you're good to go. Yeah, I torqued these down to 60 foot-pounds. One did 2 passes, one at 30 and then one at 60. And everything's in there. Kind of oiled the bearings before I stuck it all back in there, so it's nice and lubricated. So now I'm going to set up the camera and I'm going to install these axle seals and go from there. Alright guys, let's go ahead and install this axle seal. Started there a little bit. If you can, use like a piece, something flat, something solid, maybe like a big giant socket, something that'll cover that pretty good, and then sometimes I like to countersink them just a little bit below that chamfered edge. Alright, there it is. It's easy enough, not too bad. So we'll go ahead and do the other side and go from there. Alright, next thing we're going to do is the pinion seal. Right there. There it goes, it's starting to get in there now. Kind of got to walk it through. Kind of hear that solid sound? That means you're all the way in. So we're good to go on that. A little bit of a bear to get them started, but once you get them started, they're in there. Let me get that camera. So, yeah, there you go. A little bit of a gap, which I think aids when you need to remove it. So I'm gonna lubricate all this up and go ahead and install the pinion yoke there for the drive shaft. So, all right, I'm gonna get all that going. All right, guys, here we go. We're about to do the pinion yoke. Get that thing cleaned up and painted. So what I'm gonna do, these are really nice to have, little oiling cans. I got it full of gear oil right now. Help with the seal there. All right, there's the washer. I'll go ahead and run it in, hopefully with the washer nut here. All right, snap on 1 1/8 impact socket and a glove. Hopefully I can hold this thing still and do this. So we'll see how well this works. What I'm trying to do is line up this little mark that I made on the nut and the pinion stud here. There it is. All right. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully y'all can see it. That's what I was trying to line up. As I stated earlier, you want to mark this if you're changing the seal. That way you go back in the exact same location with the tightness of the preload of the pinion. That way everything goes back the way it's supposed to. So that's in there now, and like worked out okay. So new seals are installed. Next thing I need to do is install the brakes. I need to install those, and then I install the axles, and then I can put everything together, all the spider gears on the other side, put the C-clips in it, and then install the gasket and new cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and get everything going and go from there. Alright YouTube, here we go. We'll do the rear shock relocators. First things first, we're going ahead and do the trailing arms first. Went ahead and knocked out the driver's side. Pretty straightforward, not too bad. One thing you will have to do, got to grind these off. They're on the spot that the surface needs to be on. So you can kind of see some paint missing there. I've kind of already test fit these a little bit because there were some issues I'm thinking I'm going to run into with the uppers, and I'll show you all that here later. But for now, we're going to go ahead and set up the camera and do this passenger arm. It's pretty easy. It gives you the template. You just set that in there. I got ahead of myself, went ahead and I already made a spot, but we'll drill that hole first, and then we'll hit this one, get this thing mounted, and go from there. I set some drill bits. I started with 5/32, 1/4 inch, and then I end off with 3/8. And the last one. There it goes. Whew. Let me clean that metal shavings. Hit that real quick. Mount this thing, go from there and there. So that was pretty simple. I think what I'm going to do as far as the uppers go, I want to show you all that. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you all that now. Alright, here we go. So here's the upper mount area. I've already made one hole. And I was going to do the other side, but I'll show you something here in a second. If you look, I don't know if you can tell, this picture is blurry on his little instructions here, but it's a little bit past 4 inches. And it shows you to make a hole there. That's the existing hole that's already there from removing the rivet. You just got to make the hole that matches. Because, let me set this aside here. If you look at that, it kind of matches the contour of the upper shock mount. So when you mount it in there, fits up in there nice. Holes line up, bolt it in, do the other side. But going off his diagram, kind of see, looks like roughly 4 inches. When you come to this side, but this is the driver's side on here. You do that, and it looks like it's about 3.5, maybe not even that. So based on that right there, that's a 1/2 inch difference. I'm going to go ahead and wait to make the hole for this one. I have not made the hole yet. If this one is perfect, then I'm going to make it match to this one. I don't know if I have to make 2 holes or not. So my plan is mount the trailing arms, get that done, and then we're going to put that rear end in position, bolt it to the trailing arms, raise it up, set it on jack. We'll start seeing how the shocks are going to mount. So I'm going to get all that going and set up, and we'll figure all that out and see how those holes line up. I may not even have to, it may all line up perfectly. That 1/2 inch may not matter one way or the other, and I'll just make another hole on the other side and go from there. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, get these things, go ahead and touch up, paint these spots that I had to grind, clean them up a little bit, and we will go from there. Alright guys, I'm going to get to it. We're ready to go. Reversal period starts. We start putting everything back together. Went ahead and touched up, painted the trailing arms, got the lower mounts in. So So they're bolted down, secure. Rear end's ready to go. We got the panhard bar bracket, and I believe that's in the right position. But remember that plate I showed y'all? That little shim slash spacer that goes on your driver's side trailing arm on the top of it, in between the trailing arm and the mounting pad on your rear end. So clear coated this thing yesterday, so that's done. So we're ready to go. Alright guys, I got my first major complaint about dead end garage. I have to pretty much stop what I'm doing because of this. Won't go in. Stuck. Same thing with the spacer. Even if you could get it all the way in past the threads, it stops right there as soon as it starts getting into the smooth part. So I don't know if he made a mistake and grabbed the wrong drill bit when he drilled these holes, or this is how he does them, but he needs to make them larger. So that puts me in a bind for today, so I guess I'm done for now until I can get a larger drill bit to enlarge these holes so the U-bolts will fit. So really disappointed right now. I was looking forward to getting all this thing bolted together, but I guess that'll happen, probably happen tomorrow. So alright guys, I'm done for now. Alright guys, well, I tried to find a drill bit to enlarge the hole slightly, but couldn't end up finding anything without having to order it. So I just used a carbide bit that I had, that I remember having when I did the cylinder heads. Kind of cleaned up the cylinder heads a couple years ago before I put the engine together, so that worked out nice. So now everything fits. So now we can go to the truck and start putting everything together. All right guys, let's get to it. All right guys, let's check it out. Check it out. Even though my floor jack is maxed out, look at that, man. That is perfect. Perfectly centered in that C-notch. That axle tube is perfectly centered. Let's check out the other side. Look at that, man. Money. Dead End Garage. I highly recommend those products. He redeemed himself. Your panhard bar brackets, your holes might be slightly smaller. Ream them out, keep going. Because his products are perfect. Even though I was frustrated about that yesterday, not anymore. I'm happy. I was a little anxious about that because I didn't test none of this before I cut it and welded it in. So I think I'm gonna call it for tonight, guys. But I think tomorrow is Friday and I get off work. I'll start working on these upper shock mounts and trying to figure out all that stuff. Make sure all that's where it needs to be. I just need to make the extra hole and be done. Or if I need to make an additional hole to get the shock alignment perfect, I'll do what I have to do. But yeah guys, I mean, you got a bracket, well thought out design. He provides a template, well thought out on that end as well, and those are the results you get. I mean, look at that. I'm just kind of rocking the rear end on the jack, floor jack. That's perfect. Can't complain. So I'm happy. I'm gonna go ahead and let the jack down, or let the rear end down on the jack stands, and call it a night. Alright guys, it's early Saturday morning, and I went ahead and yesterday mocked up the upper shock mounts, the shocks, went ahead and installed those, went in and installed the panhard bar. I wanted to mock all that stuff up. Right now I got the rear end supported with my floor jack, and I'm trying to guesstimate and simulate ride height as best as possible. Like I stated earlier, I didn't want to make that second hole for the upper shock mount on the passenger side until I saw how everything was going to work out. So now that everything's mocked up, I'm going to show you the alignment on both shocks. That passenger shock is, I would say, pretty straight up and down if you ask me. However, the driver's side is ever so slightly to the left. And honestly, guys, I don't think it's going to affect the ride quality. I don't think it's going to affect the shock. It's not in a bind. I think the shock travel is fine going up and down, because I have moved the rear end up and down. But I was more concerned about ride height than anything, because that's the position you want everything to work perfectly. So this side's been done. I have not tightened anything up yet. I still need to make the hole for that side. I'll show you from this end. Yeah, I don't think it's worth worrying about. I think I'm just going to leave it in that position, make the second hole, and go from there. Back to the mug again. Stance does matter. I'd rather be driving my C10 today, but we got to get it done first, so we'll pretty much call it on this video. The next one, I'm probably going to start putting everything back together, the airbags, the lines, the tank. I still got those new compressors to mount and wire up. And I may go ahead and rebuild the drive shaft. However, I'm not going to be installing it until everything is completely done. Brake lines installed, brakes are bled, and the rear end's full of oil. It's just everything. Once everything is done and I'm satisfied, then I'll install the exhaust, and then I'll install the drive shaft. But until then, I don't want none of that stuff in the way. So we'll pretty much call it on this one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and check out my page. Like the videos you like this one if you like this one. If you want to stay in tune with everything I'm doing on my 66 C10, I got some more projects coming up in the future, some more installs I got to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you can keep up to date with everything that I'm doing. Alright guys, I'm going to get to it this morning. Like I always say, until then, thanks for watching.